soft snore, so I knew she wasn't. Keeping true to my own method, I decided it was time to finally try. When my fingers made their final pass down her neck, I didn't go over her shoulders. Instead I lightly dragged them down, over her collarbones, and quickly dragged them over the peaks of her breasts.
Cookie.
She blurted, and tensed up immediately, as her eyes shot open. I took my hands away from her torso quickly, kind of grimacing at how fast the tension took her. She huffed, and slumped into my chest. Fucking frustrated. When she darted her eyes to mine, I glowered at her in a way that clearly said, "Don't you fucking start that shit." She got the hint. Closing her eyes as I resumed my relaxing circuit from her fingers to her ears slowly and soothingly. I made 5 passes before she was completely limp again. I did the same thing as last time. Not going over her shoulders. Instead I softly raked my fingertips over her collarbones and chest, then quickly darted them across her peaks.
Cookie.
She informed me in a mildly frustrated tone, slightly tensing. But I could notice the subtle changes. She didn't say the word as loudly, and she didn't tense as much. And she didn't even fucking open her eyes. I tried not to get my hopes up as I made my 3rd attempt. I repeated the circuit diligently. And it only took 3 passes before she was totally limp again. 2 less. Pretty big fucking difference. I ran my fingertips slightly down her chest again, hastily brushing them over the peaks.
Cookie.
She asked quietly in question form, like she wasn't quite sure whether or not she was uncomfortable. But I could feel her on top of me, and I didn't feel the tension. So I did it again, just to make sure, lightly brushing them back up to her neck. She didn't say the safe word that time. And when I darted my eyes to her face, I could see a little smile flirting at the corners of her lips. I repeated the trails, gradually increasing the pressure of my fingertips against her skin as I worked from her fingers to her neck. Then I just fucking dragged my fingers down harder and slower over the peaks of her breasts. No cookie. I kept doing it, each pass with my fingertips firmer than the last. I spent 8 total passes over her breasts with my fingers before I finally ghosted my entire palm over them, light as a feather. No cookie. I was feeling a little fucking smug about the whole thing, and the look on my girl's face told me she was too. I was afraid she was becoming impatient with my pace, but I didn't want to push it. So I kept doing the circuits, ghosting my palm, and applying slightly more pressure than the previous. I spent 9 passes with my palms, before eventually, I was actually pressing into them as I moved across her peaks. The whole process honestly probably took an hour and a half. But the look on her face when she opened her eyes and looked at me sideways told me that was no grope. So I did the circuit one last time, slowly rubbing up her arms with my entire palm, easing up to her shoulders and over them to her neck. I stopped at her ears and moved back down, sliding them over her collarbones and chest, over the neckline of her shirt, until they were positioned right over the peaks of her breasts. I held them there. I could feel her chest rising and falling under my palms as I rested them atop her, but I held them still. For a while. She probably thought that I was easing her into the feel of them on her breasts, or some shit. But really, I didn't know what the fuck to do from there. I eventually decided I had to do something, so I started to apply a gentle pressure, shifting them slightly against her peaks. It still wasn't the full-on grope or anything, but I was working her into it. I used my thumbs to massage the sides of them firmly. No cookies. I darted my eyes sideways to my girl's face once again. And she was fucking looking at me, leaning her head on my shoulder, and watching me stare at my hands on her tits. And of course, because she was Bella, she was grinning. It was so fucking unbelievable. This whole week I had been trying to make her smile, like that. I was wishing I hadn't thrown out my Scooby-Doo pajama pants and nearly asked Jess where he got them at so I could replace them. And all she really wanted was this. Something in her gaze told me that it wasn't just about wanting to be a normal girl. It was about being a normal girl with me. If it was any other motherfucker with his hands on her tits just staring at them, she wouldn't have been smiling like that. I kept my gaze on hers as I applied more pressure to her breasts. And she arched into them minutely as I cupped them. There were no cookies. So I did it. I fucking groped her, pressing into them completely, and squeezing them firmly, and never taking my eyes from hers. No cookie. And it just made her grin even wider when I did it, and her brain didn't tell her to be afraid. The frustration was gone. Her eyes were clear up and he'd turn a sort of feet. I was officially fucking smug as I smirked over at her on my shoulder. "See? You can totally handle this shit," I whispered in her ear with a smile. I continued the groping, massaging her breasts as firmly as I would allow without hurting her. And I was wondering while I was doing it if it was everything she had probably hyped it up to be. "Do you like it?" I asked in a quiet whisper into her ear. I watched her smile grow wider as she hummed her approval and let her eyes flutter closed. I shifted my gaze once again to my hands that were just fucking shamelessly groping her breasts. I didn't stop. I couldn't when she was smiling like that. I just continued watching my hands as they worked on her piece, cupping and squeezing, and not feeling like a pervert like I thought I would.
"Do you?"
she whispered quietly, not moving from her position on my shoulder. I darted my eyes to hers and nearly fucking snorted. Instead I nodded and fought against the urge to roll my eyes. What kind of stupid fucking question was that? Her eyes remained on mine for a few moments as I continued massaging. I had the urge to turn my face into her ear and kiss it. Or maybe lick it a little. Kiss my way down her neck as I fondled her completely. I was trying to push that aside, telling myself not to enjoy it so goddamn much, because it wasn't for me. I licked her lips, making me dart my eyes to them momentarily before I met her gaze again.
"Can you do more?"
she breathed, still unmoving, as if she was afraid if she moved she might lose it. It reminded me of our New Year's kiss, when I was afraid to stop kissing her, because I might lose the love I was feeling. Then her words finally sunk in. I furrowed my brows as I continued my ministrations. "What do you suggest?" I asked cautiously. I wasn't really sure how well it would work with other things, and I was terrified that the frustration would return. She didn't even fucking blush as she gazed at me sideways from my shoulder.
"Skin to skin,"
she whispered with a pleading look on her face. Holy fucking Christ. My breath hitched a little. She wanted me to go under her fucking shirt. And she was bleeding. I sighed. And not because I didn't want to do it, but because I really fucking did. And I was trying to make this all about her. Which meant I had to do it. I couldn't keep rejecting her and live with myself. With a final gust of air, I stopped my hands completely. And I had no way of knowing whether or not it would be worse if it was skin to skin. But there was really no turning back, as she gazed into my eyes, silently pleading with me to want more myself, or just give it. I couldn't tell. I didn't lift my hands completely off of her, and I never shifted my gaze from her eyes. I just slid my hands down over her ribcage, and down her stomach to the hem of her little blue shirt. I was trying to work fucking slowly, still trying to keep her relaxed. I slid my thumbs under first, rubbing the skin on her sides soothingly. She didn't tense up at the feeling, or say the word, so I ducked the rest of my fingers underneath. I continued just caressing her sides for a few moments before I slowly began making the climb up. Her eyes never left mine, and her lips became slightly parted as I slid up to her ribcage. I halted the movement momentarily, afraid that was a bad sign. But she didn't say the word or tense up. So I kept moving. The shirt rode up with me slightly, but it was all fucking wide at the bottom, so it gave me room to move up her stomach without much exposure. It was probably a fucked up thing for me to think about at the moment, but I could feel her scars. Little raised textures under my fingertips as I glided over them. It felt wrong. That I was feeling hers, and not showing her mine. It was just our way. I eventually felt the little underwire of her bra. I fingered it softly for a moment with my thumbs as my fingertips touched each other in the center of her abdomen, gazing into her eyes just to make sure she really fucking wanted me to try it. She was still pleading. So I pressed my thumbs deep into her skin, and slowly ducked them underneath it. She tensed minutely. And she didn't say the fucking word. I narrowed my eyes at her, considering if I should stop.